hosting CCS and HMRC for this market briefing on this new framework for the public sector. Before we begin, I just have a couple of housekeeping points to go over. The first is please do remain on mute throughout the duration of the presentation. We appreciate that everybody is working from home, and if your house is anything like mine, then the chances of cats meowing or a doorbell ringing is very high. Secondly, we've set aside an hour for this session. However, we don't think it will take an hour. The presentation should be about 30 to 40 minutes. In terms of Q&A, we're not going to have a formal Q&A session today, but we will be collating questions to take back to CCS, who will then provide the answers, which we can circulate following the session. So if you do have any questions at all throughout the presentation, please do just leave them in the chat, and we will collate them and send them to the team. This presentation will also be followed by a feedback form, which will be sent to all attendees after the session. I'd just like to stress to you all that this is your opportunity to really help shape and inform CCS and HMRC's thinking on this framework. So please do keep an eye out for that form when it comes around, and provide that ever so valuable industry view. One final point from me, please note the session is being recorded and will be available to view in the next few days. That's it from me, and without further ado, I will hand you over to Claire Hayward. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, Ellie, and hi, everyone. Lovely to be on the call with you, and a thank you to Ellie and Jill and techUK for hosting this event for us, and to all of you that have taken times out of your busy diaries to be here today, especially over lunchtime. We're really pleased to have the opportunity to share details of our new big data and analytics agreement with you all. You'll know from the advert that this is an agreement that we're creating in close collaboration with HMRC. So together we'll be introducing our plans relating to the agreement, which will, as you know, serve the entire UK public sector. So we'll begin with some introductions from CCS, our HMRC colleagues. My name's Claire Hayward, as I mentioned. My role is Category Lead for Big Data and Analytics within the Crown Commercial Service. So I'm leading on the development of the agreement from CCS's point of view.
Hi, I'm Kate Wood. I'm the manager for Big Data and Analytics, so I'm supporting Claire, but I'm also with CCS.
Good afternoon, I'm Calvin Jepson. I'm the Head of Data Platform Services for HMRC.
Good afternoon, I'm Ian Smith. I'm the IT Data and Analytics Category Lead on the commercial side within HMRC.
And I'm Alistair Flockhart. I'm the Commercial Lead working alongside Ian and Calvin, helping to drive this framework forward with CCS.
Okay. Session objectives. So I've drawn the short straw of going first and breaking the ice. As Claire mentioned, yeah, great for everyone who's joined. It's really good to see the interest that's coming across on this. To give you a little bit of background to this, we're going to explain what's driving this agreement, where we're coming from in HMRC, and how we feel that helps to build something wider across government with the help of the CCS. We also want to brief you sufficiently that will enable you to judge, is this the right framework for your offerings? Are we just setting up yet another framework to have you signed up to that you've got to keep monitoring? Our hope is that we're not. We're specifically aiming to target this framework in a way that will enable you to stand out from all those, the G-Cloud type framework, the tech products where there isn't something sufficient for data and analytics. And then, say, finally, we'll let you know what the next steps are, collect your feedback, and keep you informed as we progress further with this framework as we going through. So moving back, context and drivers. So HMRC about 5 years ago started to change how we were, well, hopefully it was earlier than that, but 5 years ago we started to change how we're dealing with our prime suppliers and how we're dealing with a lot of the activities around data and analytics. Calvin's team was set up around that time and built stronger. It was there before, but it didn't have quite the same structure and approach to the market. They have been skilling up and getting more and more experience in this, and understanding what the demands are across as a horizontal across HMRC. We're now seeing round about £58 million worth of professional services in that space per annum. It's a very significant activity. It drives a lot of the cornerstones and foundations of activities in HMRC. So it's really important to us that we get that right, that we're not wasting money, and we are engaging with the right people. On top of that, which is relevant to the second lot of the framework, we spend about £14 million a year on software. That is across a wide variety of suppliers, some of them very niche, some of them household names. Again, we see those more though as data, so we don't want to be just dipping in and out of the tech products type arrangement to grab those. We want to bring them into a single framework so we can not only look at what we've got today and we make sure we've got the right support and the right maintenance going forward, but also at the innovation that is coming out in the market. We want this framework to be flexible enough to allow Calvin's team to go to the market in a single place and say, oh, hadn't seen that before. I really must find out more about that. What's going on? Where do I need to be in the next 5 years? So that's very, very brief potted history of what's going on, how we're building up, how we strengthen things. Some of you will be aware that we've been running DOS competitions in this space. This framework is going to replace those DOS as we move forward. We want to be driving things through a targeted area, so we'd really like to encourage as many subject matter experts, small, medium enterprises, and also the larger suppliers who've helped us in the past and hopefully will continue to help us in this space in the future, onto this framework to deliver those professional services and that product support and even the products. I'm going to skip 2 and 3 because I think Claire is going to give us a lot more detail on how the frameworks, in fact most people on this call probably know frameworks better than I do, and how they can help. But if I can hand over to you now, Claire, and you can talk them through slide 4.
Thank you, Ian. Yeah, so yeah, as Ian said, we're looking to really have that specialism provision within this framework for big data and analytics, as well as supporting HMRC for all of the things Ian has mentioned and will come. We also recognise that the government obviously has its national data strategy, and the outcomes of that are now published, and 5 missions included within that. A key driver for this agreement as well. So we wanted to be able to offer government departments as well as every single other public sector organisation a route to market for that more specialist provision that's required, as Ian mentioned, that will enable them to further harness big data and the opportunities and efficiencies that offers us. So as fairly standard, the framework will be a 2-year agreement with 2 potential 12-month extensions. We recognise that this is a very fast-paced market and technology, and things are changing, so we'll be keeping a very close eye on changes that come out over the next sort of 18 months to see whether those extensions are appropriate or whether we need to start thinking about a replacement agreement that is more fit for purpose. So that's the kind of the framework length there. The call-off contract length will be 5 years in total. So we're setting a maximum for this rather than prescribing an initial term and extension terms, so that buyers will be able to determine what their initial term will be dependent on the call-off and their requirements. But there's that 5-year maximum there. So we're looking to create a good amount of flexibility and agility through this agreement for call-offs. And with that in mind, we're enabling direct awards, also further competition, and further on competition with expression of interest up front as well. So we're hoping that by doing that, we can make the call-off process quicker and more agile. So if a customer is looking to conduct an expression of interest first, then that gives the opportunity for those specialist subject matter experts on the agreement to raise their hand and say, yes, I've got the capacity and the capability and would like to bid for this, and save other people. In terms of timings, the Find a Tender service we will publish the pack on there in so that's what was due with a review to the framework being live and ready for business to be used by January 2022. So that's a quick kind of nuts and bolts of the framework's kind of shape and structure. I'm going to hand over now to Kate, who's going to talk you through some of the key benefits we're looking to achieve through it. Thanks, Kate.
Thanks, Claire. So we're trying to achieve a diverse supply ecosystem for all of the big data and analytics requirements across the public sector. And to do this, we're making the route to market through the call-off procedure agile and flexible, as Claire has just explained. And hopefully this will really facilitate a healthy, competitive environment. And lastly, we're looking to really increase knowledge transfer between the two sectors through collaboration, so we can narrow important skills gaps such as data literacy and other key capabilities. And more information will be available in the bid pack. So next up, Calvin Jepson will walk you through the service provisions.
Thank you. So I'm going to give you some context and some background in terms of the service provisions that we're looking for in this space. And the key elements here for us are that in line with the national data strategy, we're trying to drive those sorts of changes into government in terms of the data and analytics space, and also recognise the pace of change in the data and analytics world with technology and service requirements from customers moving very rapidly. There's a focus on capability areas, so we operate in a product orientated way around different capabilities and software then to support those capabilities. We have a focus on reuse, so this is not about one-off deliveries. This is about delivery and build and run of services and products that have a wider reuse and are built in a way to evolve with the needs of the customer, and also to ensure that we bring more innovation into this space as well, and we keep that regular pace of innovation there, helping customers in the self-serve space in particular. So what are we talking about? So data acquisition and management. So this typically covers technologies such as extract, transform and load, data fabrics, data quality tooling, metadata management tooling, and then streaming technologies such as Kafka. So delivery of data, how you bring data in, how you take data out, and effective management of data through a life cycle in an organisation. And also includes, as we move beyond the physical data side, to virtualisation for data as well. And just to give you some examples of that, so it could be anything from a simple service where you are bringing data in from a third party and you need to move that data in a safe and consistent way into a data warehouse or a data lake. You could be creating data quality rules and then providing data quality dashboards to consumers so that they can monitor and respond to issues in the data quality space. You may be working with data virtualization, as I've said, and providing views of data and access to data through RESTful APIs or through direct queries from other related software. Moving on to advanced analytics and cognitive services. So you're talking about technologies such as R, SAS, Python. So the key technologies you'd expect to be used by data analysts, by data scientists, TensorFlow, Spark, technologies that we use in modern enterprise to get additional information out of the data that the organisations hold, and serve.
I think you've just muted yourself, Calvin.
Yep, wasn't
Okay.
me, but I did just go on mute. Services in the advanced analytics and cognitive space, administration. So typically this is about managing environments that we provide for data scientists and data analysts in the organisations, where they need a team there to support, to manage those environments, ensure that capacity, performance is maintained, ensure that service levels are there and that the service is always available when it's needed by the customer, and respond to incidents and problems as they arise in terms of that data platform. It could be extending Python, so things like Python and R, where you've got sets of libraries. In a government context, there's often additional constraints around directly accessing things from the internet, so building internal libraries of services that for Python and R that can be used by those internal teams, and it could be upgrades as well. So in the advanced analytics space, in a need to evergreen and keep environments up to date, supporting the work of evergreening and perhaps upgrading SAS Enterprise Guide projects from an older version to a newer version. So you've got service continuity and you continue to provide a service on N-1 or N class services to the organisation. Moving on to reporting and dashboarding. So typical technologies in this space for us, Microsoft Power BI, Hitachi Pentaho Business Analytics, the services used with a front end and with a direct consumer in the departments, and typically these are some of the services with the largest number of consumers of those services. It also includes things like Atlassian products like Jira and Confluence, and the products used to support internal reporting and dashboarding services as well, not just reporting and dashboarding consumed by users in the departments or other external users to government needing to access data. Typical use cases here, so it could be as simple as creating a set of reports for a service, reporting on current trade volumes going in and out of the UK. It could be administration of a large reporting and dashboarding platform, again making sure that reports are running, that schedules are up to date and maintained, and that those services are provided. And it can be anything from reports and services for a handful of users up to reports and services for many thousands of users consuming concurrently. And really across this set of services, as the name of this framework implies, you could be dealing with data volumes for everything from megabytes of data right up to multiple petabytes of data used across all of these services. In the data risking space, so big focus for government in terms of compliance and risking for services, with a focus now on in-transaction risking. So rather than waiting until government transactions have been completing, assessing the risk whilst the customer is interacting with the service, or helping to steer the customer through the service based on the risking results. So this is quite often high performance, high volume services sitting around technologies such as Red Hat BRMS and running things in Drools. It could be SAS Decision Manager. There's a number of different products in the data risking space, but quite often high performance, high throughput, minimum latency services needed in the in-transaction risking space. But also under data risking, this covers post risking as well. So this is where we might be bringing in risking with multiple other data sets that we are using to evaluate the risk of transactions or the movement of goods, whatever the use case may be. So post-transaction risking is usually using much higher volumes of other data to do a more thorough assessment of risk versus low latency in transaction risking. Platform services then, this is really the core of looking after our private and public cloud presence for us as a department or for other departments. So typically for us in HMRC as an example, we're using AWS and Azure commonly now for our clouds. It's looking after those platforms, building out the infrastructure as code deployments so that we've got ready, repeatable, resilient services on cloud, and really is utilizing skill sets such as Terraform, lots of work with continuous integration, continuous delivery pipelines, utilizing products such as Git, accessing binaries and running things from Artifactory and many other services as well. So platform services, public cloud, private cloud, and building out the infrastructure essentially for the work for the other build and run lots to sit on top of. So providing the foundation that then reports can be delivered onto as a platform, or advanced analytics can be delivered, and the analytics actually run on top of those underpinning platforms. And then search and discovery. So for search, typically products such as Elasticsearch, Apache Solr, the products that are used primarily for search across structured and unstructured data sets, usually high volumes, carrying out activities such as entity extraction, pulling out values, looking for patterns across large sets of data, quite often in the search and discovery space, employing open source tooling, not just commercial tooling, to get real insight from large volumes of data. And it could include elements such as turning image data into consumable text to then pass on to the advanced analytics and cognitive services to consume and carry out further processing on. Examples in the search and discovery space. So it could be a large amount of unstructured data that's been submitted and carrying out search across that data for particular individuals or for particular patterns, and identifying all the records where those patterns exist. It could be converting images, as I've said, of text documents back into consumable text for other build and run services to consume and use. Typically, that would be integration with other advanced analytics services. And in terms of the commercial off-the-shelf software, kind of with the examples I've given, essentially, it's the technology and the products that support those build and run services. And for us, that's consumption of both COTS products that we buy, SaaS, PaaS offerings, many different forms of the software, but particular to a data and analytics context. So security and privacy software for looking after, protecting, obfuscating data, for example. Machine learning and AI, that could be services from a particular cloud, so consumption of cloud native services. That could be libraries and open source technologies that we're leveraging to solve particular problems. That's it for me from the service provision summary, and I will now pass you over to Alistair.
Hi everyone, I'm just going to briefly take you through some of the key requirements that we're looking for out of this framework. So this is focusing really on the in-life activity when we start to use the framework and have call-offs. So the ability from suppliers to drive innovation and agility to us is going to be quite key. We really want to challenge the way we operate and change the way we work. So your role in that will be quite important to us. We need to understand and leverage your capability and capacity. That is going to be key. And it leads me nicely onto the third bullet, really, which is around the knowledge transfer, knowledge capture and skills gaps. We need you to help us learn, develop and change the way in which we operate, and what you bring to that will be quite crucial for helping HMRC change the way we operate. We'll be looking for suppliers who can collaborate with our DevSecOps and DataOps teams. So that kind of evidence of collaboration is going to be key, and it will actually play a significant part in future projects. We will also be looking on occasions for levels of security clearance, so BPSS, the standard SC, and in some cases DV as well. The nature of those will be drawn by the nature of the requirements in any call-off, as you may expect. So we're not specifying specifically what they are in the framework, but we do need to make you aware that they will be requirements in the future. Likewise, we would also expect some of our call-offs to require certain security provisions, which we will signpost within the procurement activity, but we're not looking to include, but we would at the call-off level as the need arises. And finally, the point I would make here is that what we're looking for here is outcome-based activities. We really want to drive that kind of approach with suppliers where we can work on outcomes. We would have time and materials in the mix where that's appropriate as well, but we're really trying to strike that balance and drive towards the outcome-based approach. That's all I had to add on those. So I think I'm handing over to Claire now, who's going to take you through some of the next steps.
Thanks, Alistair. Yeah, so just before we get to the next steps, we wanted to tell you a little bit about the evaluation approach for the framework. So we're looking to make the specification as detailed as possible for you to sort of further understand, in addition to what Calvin has talked through, the technology and the skills we're looking to include. But what we want to do is we'll be capping the number of suppliers on lot 1 to 20. And that goes back to what I mentioned earlier on in the presentation about making more agile call-offs, so it not taking, reducing the amount of time it takes to run a call-off with further competition. So what will happen is we're setting a total threshold score for both lots, but on lot 1, it will be the highest scoring 20 suppliers above that total threshold score that will have a place on the lot. Whereas lot 2, which is for the COTS software, will be uncapped. So providing that the score is above that total threshold score, you would automatically be awarded a place. Within lot 1, as Calvin talked you through, there are 6 capability areas in total. Providing what we're looking for is for provision of 1 or more of those capabilities, equally in lot 2 within the 5 capabilities there. So if you're able to provide more than one of the capabilities, that's fantastic. You can bid for all 6 or 5 or 3 or 2 or whatever it is that you are able to bid for. That's absolutely fine. The evaluation will standard selection questionnaire and award questionnaire in terms of the stepping stones. The selection questionnaire is mandatory, so all elements of that will be pass-fail in terms of the questions. Providing that is passed, there will be an award questionnaire which covers the technical elements as well as the social value elements for the framework, which will be weighted. There will be 4 questions for the award questionnaire. One of those will be the social value questions, and the remaining will be technical. Just a quick point that we're looking for suppliers that have a UK-based entity. We'll also be using Sophia day rates for pricing in terms of the pricing evaluation, and the most economically advantageous tender ratio will be of 10% social value, 60% quality and 30% on price. So moving on now to the next steps, just to say thank you for attending again today. techUK will be, Jill and Ellie will be circulating the questionnaire as they mentioned, the form to enable you to provide questions and feedback. Please do. We're really, really interested to hear your thoughts and to really get a good handle of the industry's feedback. So that will be incredibly helpful for us. You can also register your interest in this by emailing our mailbox, which is cybercategory@crowncommercial.gov.uk. If you can just pop the agreement number, which is RM6195, in the subject, that would be great. It would also be helpful to know which of the lots you're interested in and capabilities, if you're happy to tell us that. You can also keep track of the latest information and updates in relation to the frameworks build by looking at the framework webpage on the CCS website. The link is in this slide deck here, which we will be sharing with everybody, so you can go straight to that. And as we have further documentation, that will be published on. Keep dipping back and forth and having a look there. But I'll stop there. I hope that's been helpful for you all. Thank you very much to my fellow CCS and HMRC colleagues for assisting with this presentation, and I'll hand back now to Ellie.
Thank you so much, Claire. Many thanks to all of our speakers today. Obviously, thanks to Claire, Kate, Calvin, Ian and Alistair for this really great presentation. And many thanks to all of you who attended the session today, especially as the sun is shining and it's lunchtime. As mentioned, please do look out for the feedback form when it comes around. You know, this is a good opportunity to provide some really valuable input. The deadline for that is Monday, the 22nd of June, but we'll reiterate this in the email. Also, please note that the cyber category email, which was up on the screen, is not for questions. It's purely for registering your interest. Any questions, again, please do leave them in the chat, or you can send them through to us at techUK and we will collate those. And do keep checking the website for updates. I hope you all have a very enjoyable afternoon, and many thanks again for joining.